I've been playing with my new phone over the weekend, the iPhone 6 in gold. I love it so far. But what do you make of this 10 million number, Alex? How big a deal is it?
It's a good number. It's up from 9 million last year for the 5S, 5C. Frankly, we would have liked to have seen a slightly larger number, but as Tim Cook said, they had some manufacturing constraints. Most likely that's on the 6 Plus side, where manufacturing, at least our indications were that manufacturing started a bit later. So a good start. We're only in 9 markets, 20 more, as you said, and then 115 by the end of this year. Hopefully China will be among them.
So this is about manufacturing, you think, not marketing? Because, you know, we've been discussing the issue of, does Apple, you know, sort of purposely hold down supply in order to increase the hype?
I don't believe Apple does that. I think Apple does the best it can, and actually it's a phenomenal ramp. You know, it's less than 2 weeks from announcement to ramp. Samsung couldn't do that with the Note 4. We're going to be waiting another month for those phones to come out. So it's a manufacturing marvel, and the sad thing is some people are going to have to wait a bit longer, including a lot of people in North America for the larger screen iPhone 6 Pluses.
Do you think there's a particular component that's difficult, or is it that they pushed the design all the way up? They were still working the design of this phone into the weeks before the announcement.
The speculation is that the larger screen sizes on the iPhone 6 Plus were problematic from a yield perspective.
So the yield of the sapphire glass, or is it sapphire or it's not sapphire?
Sapphire protection, yes.
Right. So they're not able to successfully make enough of this stuff.
Potentially.
Yeah.
JMP Securities hasn't been able to confirm that ourselves, but I believe that's what's widely believed to be the case right now.
Now, it's unclear if the 6 or the 6 Plus is more popular. It seems the 6 Plus is sold out in more places, but that doesn't necessarily mean that's a phone people are buying more.
Well, I think there are fewer of them to be bought. There are indications that there has been outsized demand for these larger screen phones, and when we get to launching in China, I expect those to be extremely popular in China as well.
So about China, there have been unconfirmed reports that the Chinese government has not approved the phone and maybe might not approve the phone for a while. We know, of course, China as a government is supporting some local manufacturers, whether it's Huawei or Lenovo or you name it, Xiaomi, of course, which we've covered a lot. What do you know about what's going on in China in terms of regulatory approval and the ability to sell the phone, not the demand for the phone?
Corey, in our view, China is going to happen. It's a question of when, not if. We've already got the 5S on sale in China. Right. China was a great geography for Apple last quarter. China Mobile is working hand over fist to install infrastructure. They upsided last week their targets for 4G base stations, so now they intend to do 700,000 instead of 500,000. So I think they're getting ready.
Not just for Apple, but for a lot of companies.
That is correct, and Altera is a company that JMP Securities believes should be bought on that upside announcement.
The stock, not the whole company.
The stock, yes, correct.
We don't buy either here at Bloomberg West.
And Apple is going to come after that, and I think it's very wise for Apple to wait until it has sufficient supply to go after that market. Is there a regulatory portion of this? Probably, but I don't think it's going to be insurmountable.
So when it comes to the other countries, how do you expect the sales to play out? What kind of an international rollout are you expecting?
Very strong, because as in North America, the other geographies have been starved for larger screen iPhones, and there are a lot of geographies where people can't afford both a phone and a tablet, for whom a hybrid device that can serve both roles is very advantageous. And then there's also the nations where there's a greater degree of commuting by subway, by rail, where those larger screens come into play. So we think it's going to be a very strong international rollout.
So last year, after the 5S was released, we got the weekend numbers. The company also updated their guidance, and they said, hey, the quarter looks even better than we expected. No, they were mum today. So I look at that, I'm like, geez, does that mean things are just as expected, worse than expected? What do you make of the lack of guidance?
You know what's interesting, actually? We haven't had in previous years them talk about the pre-orders and the initial weekend sales. So there's actually more information this year than there was last year to feed off of. Perhaps they're just teasing it out. We'll have to see. they still have to roll out in all these.
Wow. Teases.
iPad launch coming up in October, we believe. What are you expecting there?
Well, that's another really important aspect of this story. We know that Apple is working with IBM to increase their penetration of enterprises. We'd like to see with these new iPad refreshes a little bit more on the strategy on how they're going to do that. I mean, they can go a long way with replacing and modernizing the way people, franchises do business, and part of the pay attractiveness can also bleed into the iPad, we believe.
Yeah, I've talked to some sources at IBM on the sales side, and I've gotten sort of two interesting tidbits, and I'm curious what you think about them. One was that the sales force is really stoked to have the iPad to offer their customers instead of having to offer them subpar tablets or just say, go get something yourself and we'll tell you how to use it. But also that the application development within IBM, they think is going to be the real driver. Well, this is coming from sort of the bottom of the salespeople, not the CEO announcing that the apps are great.
Right, and what we can already work with, we can look at Pay right now. Apple Pay is a wonderful marriage between hardware and an application and bringing along an ecosystem. Now let's add IBM to this equation and all those Fortune 500 relationships, all those business needs and use cases that they can now bring specific technology solutions to with an elegant hardware solution behind it.